the suspect who was shot and also the real estate employee who was killed. We don't know who the two other victims are.
What if the person living next door, the one you exchange pleasantries with every day, is hiding a dangerous secret? Neighbors, the very people you trust with your daily life, can sometimes turn into the most unexpected killers. In this chilling exploration of true crime, we uncover the most unbelievable stories where friendly faces turned deadly. From seemingly harmless disputes to twisted betrayals, these stories will make you question just how well you know the people living next door. Get ready to dive into these terrifying tales that prove sometimes the most dangerous people are the ones living just a few steps away. The killer across the street. The Foster family's life seemed perfect until their friendly neighbor, Carl, turned into a cold-blooded killer. For years, Carl had been a regular presence in their lives. He helped out with small tasks around the house, borrowed tools, and shared casual conversations over the fence. His relationship with the family appeared cordial, and he was seen as the kind of neighbor who would always lend a helping hand. No one ever suspected that Carl, who had been so ingrained in their daily lives, harbored deep resentment that would eventually spiral into violence. The shocking event unfolded one evening when Carl snapped, brutally murdering the Fosters in a fit of rage. What was even more chilling was the discovery that Carl had been holding onto his anger for years. He had been secretly harboring a grudge against the family, though no one knew the cause. The facade he had carefully maintained in front of his neighbors now seemed like a perfect mask hiding a darker side. In the aftermath, the neighborhood was left stunned.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Rachel Kim.
And I'm Chris Holmes from our top story on KCAL 9 News at 10, also streaming on CBSN Los Angeles.
As the killer they never saw coming was the very person who had lived just across the street, quietly plotting a gruesome act of violence. The unsolved poisoning plot. Rebecca and Sarah were more than just neighbors. They were friends. They had a comfortable routine of chatting over the fence, exchanging homemade dishes, and looking out for each other. Rebecca even helped Sarah with her children and often stayed late to lend a hand with various errands. However, what seemed like an innocent friendship was hiding a sinister agenda. Over time, Sarah began to feel ill, suffering from unexplained symptoms that grew progressively worse. At first, doctors couldn't pinpoint the cause, but things took a darker turn when Rebecca's own husband started showing the same symptoms. As it turned out, Rebecca had been poisoning both Sarah and her husband with small doses of a slow-acting toxin. She had been meticulously and secretly poisoning them over several months, watching them deteriorate without ever raising suspicion. The motive behind such a horrifying act remains unclear, though some speculated it could have been driven by jealousy, a personal vendetta, or even a twisted desire for control. The discovery of Rebecca's actions only came to light when both victims grew gravely ill, but it was too late for Sarah, who tragically passed away. The full extent of Rebecca's dark plan still remains shrouded in mystery, with the true reason behind her shocking betrayal never fully revealed. The betrayal of trust. Thomas and Jack had been neighbors for years, and over time, they developed a relationship based on trust and mutual respect. Jack had recently fallen on hard times, and when he found himself without a place to stay, Thomas, seeing him as a friend, offered him shelter. For months, Jack lived with Thomas, helping out around the house and being a companion. What seemed like an act of kindness took a dark turn when, one evening, Thomas was found murdered in his own living room. Initially, it seemed like a random act of violence, but soon, the investigation revealed the shocking truth. As it turned out, Jack, the very person Thomas had taken in, had been planning the murder for weeks. Despite the apparent friendship between them, Jack had been harboring deep resentment toward Thomas, possibly due to unresolved personal issues or jealousy. The betrayal was unimaginable. Jack, the man who had been welcomed into Thomas's home, had used that trust to execute a brutal crime. The murder was carefully planned, and it left the community in disbelief. A once strong friendship had been shattered by Jack's hidden bitterness. transforming him from a neighbor into a cold-blooded killer, the quiet neighbor with a dark secret. Mark had always been the quiet, reclusive neighbor that most people overlooked. He kept to himself, rarely interacting with the other residents of the neighborhood. His house was often dark at night, and his presence in the community was minimal, so much so that many neighbors didn't even know much about him beyond his name. The Wright family, who lived next door, had never had any issues with Mark, but they were unaware of the darkness that was festering behind his silent exterior. Mark's solitary nature masked a dangerous obsession with the Wrights that no one had ever suspected. One night, Mark's quiet life took a horrifying turn when he brutally murdered the Wright family while they slept. The crime was horrific, and what made it even more chilling was the discovery that Mark had been living with the bodies for weeks before anyone realized something was wrong. He had been hiding the murder in plain sight, maintaining his usual routine while the family's bodies lay decomposing in the house. The motive for this gruesome act was uncovered later. Mark's obsession with the Wright family had driven him to madness, and his years of quiet lurking and resentment exploded into violence. The community was left stunned by the horrific revelation that the neighbor they had all ignored was capable of such a dark and violent act. The fatal dispute over property. Jane and her neighbor, Mr. Thompson, had a relatively uneventful relationship until a simple property dispute turned deadly. Jane had made a few changes to her garden, planting new flowers and rearranging the landscape in a way that Mr. Thompson didn't approve of. What seemed like a trivial issue to Jane quickly became a source of anger for Mr. Thompson, who felt that her changes had somehow violated the unspoken boundaries of their shared space. He confronted Jane about the issue in an increasingly hostile manner, but no one expected the situation to escalate beyond a few harsh words. However, the confrontation took a deadly turn when Mr. Thompson, in a fit of rage, attacked Jane. What began as a disagreement over garden changes led to a violent outburst that ended with Jane's tragic death. The shocking nature of the crime was amplified by the fact that Mr. Thompson had previously appeared to be a mild-mannered, quiet man. His violent outburst revealed a dark side that had been hidden beneath the surface, and the once cordial neighborly relationship turned into a heartbreaking reminder of how quickly even the smallest conflict can spiral into tragedy. The crime of passion. Samantha and Kate had been best friends for years, sharing everything from personal secrets to life's milestones. Their bond seemed unbreakable, and they were often seen as inseparable in the neighborhood. However, beneath the surface of their friendship, a dark and twisted secret festered. Samantha had secretly developed romantic feelings for Kate's partner, a desire she kept hidden, but it slowly consumed her. The pressure of these unrequited feelings, combined with jealousy and a sense of betrayal, grew too intense for Samantha to control. She struggled to keep her emotions buried while maintaining the facade of a supportive friend. One night, overwhelmed by her emotions, Samantha's jealousy erupted into violence. In a fit of rage and betrayal, she brutally murdered Kate. The shock of the crime left the entire neighborhood reeling, as no one could have imagined that the quiet, seemingly loyal friend was capable of such an act. What made this crime even more chilling was that it wasn't just an act of violence, but a crime of passion, driven by the complex and dark emotions of love, envy, and resentment. Samantha's betrayal of her closest friend shattered the trust they had built over the years, leaving a scar on everyone who thought they knew her. These stories serve as a chilling reminder that danger can sometimes come from the people we least expect, our own neighbors. What once seemed like harmless disputes, friendly exchanges, or even deep friendships turned into deadly betrayals, shocking murders, and chilling acts of violence. In these cases, the most unimaginable horrors were carried out by the people living just a few doors down. As unsettling as these true crime stories are, they remind us to never take for granted the people we interact with daily. Keep your guard up, because sometimes the real danger lurks closer than we think.